Hello there, A-Push. I had really high hopes to give you all individual messages, and it's just going to take me forever. I did write you all a very detailed rubric with my horrible handwriting, but I wanted to just go over a couple things that came up a lot, and I thought that would at least give you a little background on, and I'm going to show you some of the greatest hits. These are not the only greatest hits, but I'm going to show you some really solid examples so that you can kind of see this is what we really need to shoot for when we're constructing this, okay? So first things first, we want to, here's your question, here's your documents. So a couple quick things about how to set this up. So contextualization really needed to be detailed, okay? We needed specific things. Notice it says it's not awarded for merely a phrase or a reference. So there were some people who were just kind of vague, like saying things like, and cities were growing and people were moving. You know, that's not going to be enough. We're going to have to get more specific. So I'll show you some good examples of that. Thesis statement, most of you are pretty solid on this. Some of them could be a little bit more specific. So in this case, if we're talking about consequences, you don't just want to say there were consequences, right? You have to say what the consequences are. You want to give some specific examples, and I'll show you some good examples of that. One thing that, and this might be, I wasn't clear enough on this, but when you're writing your paragraphs, and this is why I'm not an English teacher. So I'm thinking how to write historically, but I forgot an important thing to tell you, which is you really should have a topic sentence, right? And I kind of thought that goes without saying, but it mustn't. So that's something that some of you did really well, and some people just kind of said, document one says this. I was like, whoa, like set it up, right? You really want to have a clear topic sentence so that you're going to set up your arguments. This is small but important. Like a lot of people were saying natives or just saying blanket kind of things like all Native Americans. We want to be as specific as possible. So in this picture, we're looking at Lakota, okay? And that's an important part of their identity. That's an important part of the story. And that's also a important part of the Plains. Because when we say Native Americans, that could mean Seminoles in Florida. That could mean Apache in New Mexico, right? We're talking specifically about the Plains. So you want to be specific as much as possible. You want to, because when we talk about what's happening with these Lakota boys, you could then bring in the Lakota Wars, right? You could then bring in that outside information. So I think across the board, we need to be a little more specific when we're talking about Indigenous people or really any groups of people in general. Same thing with Chief Joseph. He is a Nez Perce. He is, and we went over him in class because I knew this document was coming. Remember, he's the one that tried to outrun the US government. That's an important part of the story. So to just say Chief Joseph is a Native American and says this, like, you got to be more specific than that. Context really matters here. Some people also kind of mix this up with the Black Hills, totally different. Oregon is so far away from the Black Hills, hundreds and hundreds of miles. So just be careful with little things like that that will matter. That could be the difference between getting a 7 points on your rubric or getting the 4 or 5. You don't want to just summarize the documents. You don't just want to dive in and be like, document one says this, document two says that. Some of you, you'll notice I put, you're summarizing too much. Less summarize, more argument. You want to think about your thesis. You want to weave these in to prove it. Okay, so you should not have a separate paragraph for every document. That's not what we're doing. We're not summarizing documents. These are your clues. You want to build your argument. And this comes with practice. And the other thing, context really matters here. We're looking at document 3. You've got to look at the years, friends. Okay, 1891. These years are really important. If there's a year there, they expect you to know what's going on in that year. So 1891, that is the year after Wounded Knee, right? And it says there, after the Battle of Wounded Knee. So some of you would use this, but then start talking about Sand Creek. And I was like, Sand Creek's 1864, right? Like you just want to keep things chronologically sound. And especially for outside information, you want to make sure you're putting your outside information where it fits. Some of you threw it in at the end, and I'm wondering if it's because just how the rubric had it here. Where's the rubric? It was like on the rubric, and some of you were like, "Oh, I got to throw one more piece in." And so you wrote this article argument about Wounded Knee, and then you go back and talk about the Homestead Act, which is 30 years before. I was like, "Yeah." So this outside evidence can go anywhere, but it needs to go where it makes sense. Does that make sense? They get easier. Okay, let's take a look at some. I promise you're going to get so good at these, you can do them in your sleep. Let's take a few examples. These are some of the greatest hits. These are not the only greatest hits, but I thought these were really solid examples. First one, this person, you're looking at their introductory paragraph and their topic sentence. I love this person for putting in specifics. Look at that. They've got the Transcontinental Railroad. They even say Union Pacific and Central Pacific. They're talking about the Homestead Act and then they explain it. So they don't just like name drop random APUSH stuff, right? They're really explaining what that did, how that caused conflict. Nice, solid thesis statement here saying that the consequences were bad, giving some examples. I like that they then focused their topic, their body paragraph with a nice topic sentence, kind of says, here's what I'm going to prove. Nice work, great intro paragraph. Okay, here's another one of what I thought was the greatest hits. This is another introductory paragraph. And again, this person starts setting up the scene with that Homestead Act. That's an important part of why white settlers are moving there, right? They pull in Indian removal. They talk about the Native Americans were not considered in that. I love that they pull in the Treaty of Fort Laramie. That's a nice specific thing that they bring in here. The Bureau of Indian Affairs, they talk about gold discovered in the Black Hills. I like that this is in chronological order. It flows nicely. And when you look at their thesis statement, you can see it's specific. It says, here's my argument. It's transformed for the worse. And here are the reasons why. Boom, boom, boom. Nice work. Okay, let's take a look at this. Is a really solid body paragraph here. This is this person's body paragraph. So this is not the introduction, but this was one of the strongest ones I saw. So here is a nice solid topic sentence setting up the whole thing. Now, I like that this person says, according to the source, Chief Joseph, Fee, the author, is talking about what Chief Joseph says, right? This person does a nice job wording that we're reading an autobiography, but it's Chief Joseph's words. And it's talking about, this person then says, that's breaking the Treaty of Fort Laramie, right? That's hurting them in the long run. Clear effects, really showing analysis. Then they lead into, look, see, they said Lakota. They didn't just say natives or native people or Native Americans, right? As much as possible, it's just more, it's more a more accurate story if we can use the actual names. They give some examples of that too. And then finally, they bring in the last one, Commissioner of Indian Affairs, and they're talking about his point of view, cultural identity. And then it also kind of says, now this one says it leads to the Dawes Act in Carlisle Indian School. A little confusing on that just because this particular document was printed after that. However, the point that they're making is sound, right? But that is a little off time-wise. So that's a minor detail though. Overall, all of those are great examples. Those are not the only great examples. Don't be like, where's mine? There are some really good examples here. Those that I didn't get to read. I don't want this video to be 800 hours long. So this is a great first start, okay? We're gonna continue to build. When you get your feedback, when you get to your rubric, it'll make more sense. Instead of leaving you all individual videos or voicemails, I'm just gonna, for those that did struggle a little bit, I'm gonna try to be extra. I'll leave a comment for you, but everybody's gonna get back their rubric. This is, you guys are doing so awesome. Can I just say that? Like, we're in the middle of the pandemic, school's changed 800 times, and you guys are doing amazing work. And I'm really proud of the work you've done so far. So be proud of what you've got here. Nicely done. We'll keep going. We'll be back at it tomorrow. See you soon.